The deal is this. Tell you, when I was a kid, that read Dropper Anton Wilson, all this real. Tell you, when I was a kid, that read Dropper Anton Wilson, all this real. Dude, I'm pissed. Dude, I'm pissed. Come on. What do we do? Come on. What do we do? Okay, by the time we finish this, you're all going to be practicing magicians.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where Gary and I talk about the X-Men. We are on issue 150 of the new X-Men and the conclusion of the Planet X arc. Things are getting wild. Magneto has gone crazy. He's, what seems like, has almost destroyed all of the X-Men. He's at least disbanded them for a brief time. Xavier is his captive, his hostage, who is super naked in a tube. I think that's really important that we keep mentioning that. Jean and Logan have gone into the sun. Scott and Phantom X made it back from the moon or wherever the fuck that space station was back on Earth, and they've assembled a crew of dudes to go up, try to fix this somehow. They don't really know how. Yeah.
I don't want to put on too much of my bonfire side chat brain, but Jeremy, what do you think the chances are this tube is a nutrient bath?
It's the magic words,
connections.
Dude. I gotta be honest with you.
Bath is back, baby.
If there's a way that I could take a bathtub and feel full at the end, I would fucking once a day, just like soak in it, right? Just get into
Jeremy Greer's reverse soup.
Oh my god,
reverse. Like
soup.
I am the soup, I get the soup.
Yeah,
I
mean, it's kind of gross to put my whole naked body into the soup before I absorb it through my skin and it fills me up. But hey, what the fuck ever? It's gross to shit, and I still do that every day.
Yeah, we do a lot of gross stuff, dude. Like, quite honestly. I just imagine you like go into the nutrient soup, you take a bath, and before you know it, you're just in an empty bathtub, having absorbed all the soup into your body. It's like, oh shit.
Autumn finds me passed out again. Like, I told you not to drink when you're in the soup bath.
Way too much soup. You just pouring a shot into the soup bath to absorb that as well.
Get the crown, baby. I feel like a bender coming on.
Lighting candles, filling the bathtub with soup.
Yes.
So cover of this one, it's showing Jean Grey and Wolverine both doing the no pose basically while New York is on fire. Decent little cover for the special 150th issue.
This is the kind of comic book covers that I think a lot of comic book nerds are really into, like these kind of like triptych, like there's a small dude and then a bigger dude, like, and there's an X above that, like, and I just like none of this shit ever works for me. Like, I always want something cooler than this.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like it. Out of this arc, the Zorn cover is by far the coolest one.
Yes.
And we get to this immediately. We see the Phoenix flying in the sun, and she's asking, "Have your eyes grown back yet?" Which, like, what a great opening line.
Super good
to this. The name of this issue is Phoenix Invictus. Wolverine is disintegrating in the heat. He's like, I don't know if my eyes have grown back yet. What am I looking at? What did you do, Jeannie? I was on fire. And she says, you did it. Like, you released the Phoenix consciousness. I use the disintegrating asteroid and the sun's energy to build and power our transport. So she basically makes a spaceship.
Yes.
Here. And she's like, I had to die to come back, but I don't know how long they'll let me stay.
Yeah. Interesting. And this coincides with the same time because at the end of the last issue, the Phoenix had reached out to Xavier and like showed him something. So like this coincides, her coming back, her reincarnating herself coincides with the same thing. From there, we cruise over to the Pacific Ocean where Hank and Emma are just chilling on this like broken ass plane that they just that luckily doesn't sink. I guess it's got floaters. Really good design there. And they've been out by themselves for 3 days.
Yeah. Yep. And Hank is trying to work out the series, like adding it up. Sublime, Thing 2, Kick, human aggression riots, and he's drawing equations on the side of the ship. Fucking up his nails. Like he's like, I need a pen, or fucking up his claws rather. And Emma Frost is basically just kind of like teasing him. They have this banter, saying like, no, actually, you don't need a pen, you need water. Like, I'm immune to thirst in my diamond form, but you're getting delirious. And I love this thing. She sees something coming down the way. Massive, familiar telepathic emissions. Brace yourself. Hank says, should I be worried? What is that? And Emma Frost says, oh, what does it look like? It's bloody Jean showing off again.
I love when she says, like, massive emissions, all too horribly familiar. Like, this chick is just done with Jean Grey. Like, if there's anybody in the like, she represents all of the fans of the Marvel Universe who are like, please, again? Really? Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fine. This time it's Sansa Stark. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm back in. Whatever.
We cut over to Washington, where the president is being briefed by kind of a hawkish character who is like, no, we've sent out our experimental ceramic planes. We're gonna drop bombs on New York. The president is resisting this. He's like, no, don't worry. These are neutron warheads. It'll kill all the mutants, but leaves our architectural heritage intact. Which is a real idea when people thought of neutron bombs, like something that killed people but left buildings, was always an idea, basically to sow or to reap the fruits of war. Rather
super gross. We cut over to New Genosha, aka Old New York, and Toad has just
once New Amsterdam, and now it's New Genosha.
Constantinople.
New Genosha was once Old New York.
Toad has been getting yelled at by Magneto, and he's like, "Look, I'm just telling you the truth. Like, you don't have any support. Nobody down there has had food or water. Like, what are you doing? Like, this just seems like bad planning." And of course, Magneto is like, "You're too impatient. This is war. We're accumulating power. We're gonna stand the Earth on its head by flipping the poles," because he keeps promising that but not actually doing it. This is Ernst comes in and says, "Martha says you waited too long. You should have stayed as Mr. Zorn, and now you're going to die."
Yep. And Magneto steps to Ernst, like, I've always suspected there's more than meets the eye to you. Now let's see what that might be, going to villain mode. But Angel interrupts him and is like, no, like, what is wrong with you? You're going to give her a heart attack. Like, don't lift your hands to any of us. My kids do not want to see a murdering junkie in charge of the whole world. And Esme basically backed her up. Like, all the kids have rebelled on him. You should have listened to me, Eric. Oh no, but I was just a means to an end. Nobody knows who's in charge anymore. He's, like, I'm in charge. And Beak pops up. Like, maybe if crazy on drugs is your idea of in charge.
I love that Beak is like stumbling in here with like one blinded eye and a baseball bat. Like, fucking Beak is for all of his like, he's just a bag of chicken bones and hair, is one of the most baller characters that come out of this series.
Oh yeah. And it's a perfect distraction for Magneto. This being part of a coordinated assault is like, that's perfect. Because Magneto could imagine that Beak is going to do this, and he has a metal bat. Which means that, Magneto is going to instantly go into overconfidence mode.
Yeah. He snatches the baseball bat from Beak and is like, "Oh, you passed my test. You returned a stronger man." And of course, Esme makes fun of him for using a titanium bat against the Master of Magnetism. And Beak just responds to this with, "Xavier School is the best school." And I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it. Xavier School is best school. Really, really great. Magneto says, like, pacify him, Esme, and Esme's like, pacify him yourself, He starts apologizing to Esme. He's realizing that he has no allies at this point. And while they're arguing, Phantom X comes up on EVA. Esme recognizes him because, as we know, as we'll find out, these cuckoos are weapon 14, I think, or 11 or something. That they're also one of the weapons.
Yes.
But she's like, weapon 13. Phantom X, what now? Are you going to use bullets? And Phantom X jumps in and shoots his weird ceramic, bullets, or they're metal, but he gets the drop on it.
Yes.
And shoots Magneto a couple times.
Mm-hmm. We kind of go into an action shot, and Magneto or Toad jumps out towards Phantom X, and Phantom X just blows his knees away. And even as he's falling on the ground with his knees, like, he's upside down, his bloody knees are pointed to the sky, and he's got his tongue fully extended, Gary. Like, even getting shot in the knees won't get this dude to close his mouth.
Yeah. They should not have drawn him with that super tongue.
No, agreed.
Yeah. So he shoots Magneto. Magneto makes the bullets miss, and he's like, missed. And Phantom's like, was everything you say a cliche? Like, he wasn't aiming for Magneto. He was bursting Charles Xavier's nutrient bath tank. Magneto at this point starts tearing apart girders in the building to wrap up Phantom X. And Martha's like, oh, here he comes. Magneto's like, oh, what next? And Cyclops blast him from underneath the ground.
Yes.
Like full bore.
And Scott, rightfully pissed. You know something, even after everything that happened to me, I still trusted you. I thought Zorn was a genuinely good man. He gave me hope, and it was you all along. It was lies. You filled our lives with lies. And while this is happening, while he's saying this, he is just like beating the shit out of Magneto, like hammering each point home with his fist. Telling Magneto that he feels stupid, that he's, I kept running from all of this rage that's been repressed in my life, and he's not going to hold back anymore, and he's decided to let it loose on people like him, and he completely explodes Magneto's helmet. I don't really care how or why, and it doesn't hurt Magneto, it doesn't seem, so whatever, who cares?
Oh, it definitely hurts him, as like his eyes bleed, his eardrums pop. He talks about that. It's like, this fucks up Magneto. It doesn't kill him, because it's concussive.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It just pushes. But I love this little bit where he just gets right up to him and he like puts his eyes, he's like, hey, your helmet keeps you safe from telepathy, right? And Magneto going, wait. Like, I love wait. Just like, he's so used to the X-Men stopping and like trading barbs.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's not prepared for them to take him seriously at this point. He bursts the helmet. He's like, I can't see. My eardrums are burst, my eyes are bleeding. Cyclops does pause for a moment at this point because he's not, cutthroat. He's like, look, I didn't mean to do that. He didn't want to permanently cripple him. And Magneto grabs Zorn's head and smashes Scott in the head with it. While this is happening, the kids are all getting the crowds out of New York.
Yes.
And trying to stop the bombs.
Magneto is feeling the effects of like Scott's blast. His head is ringing and he feels like Charles may be invading his mind. But it's not Charles, it's Esme. Have you never noticed how I look, how I dress because you made me believe myself? I thought you were special, the great mutant who ever lived, but you're just a fossil. This is how Alzheimer's feels like in Fast Forward. And Eric feels this and reacts by pulling her metal earrings out of her ears and shoving them into her brain, killing her instantly. And he's crying while he does this. He's like, don't do this. Don't make me do this. It's a defense thing, but she still dies.
Yeah. Yep. And he's just like, may the future forgive me. Like, you get the sense that like Magneto was thinking of this in terms of like G.I. Joe battles where like everybody just runs up and misses each other with lasers and cannot handle how real this is, and there's suggestions of this later, like, where Jean Grey calls him out on it basically. Like, you had one last big chance to show off your ego and make your big speeches. You fucked it up. Everyone keeps telling him like, hey, you should have just done the thing. He never wanted to do the thing. He wanted this position, this like liminal state where he's giving speeches and grandstanding and the X-Men stop him. And then he comes back and does it again. Like he cannot handle winning this.
No, not at all.
He grabs his Zorn helmet and puts it on because that will also protect him from telepathy. And he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the sky fall. Thinking basically, and when he says this, I don't think he's talking about reversing the polls. I think he's talking about the city being nuked. Like, this is basically suicide by president, suicide by nuke.
Oh man, what a way to go. Suicide by president.
There's going to be a lot of homicides by president soon enough.
In the, it's true. It's very true. In the air above New York, all of these stealth bombers are saying that there's two suns that have appeared out, and one of the suns is saying we shouldn't engage the bomb release. And of course, one of the suns is the voice of Beast, who tells them like, this is Dr. Henry McCoy from the Xavier Institute. Like, we have this under control. You do not need to bomb the entire city. Like, please stop.
Yep.
And yeah,
they push back. Like, they're just like, no. We have nothing to lose. Like, the scientists say that, Magneto has declared war on the human race. How can we trust you? And he's like, listen, I'll leave the details of that, but you have to accept not all mutants are your enemies. There's one person who's figured out how to repair the gene that's threatening humankind with extinction. Me. So, check with your scientist and we can probably find a way to be friends. Beast is bluffing here, as we'll find out later.
Yes.
But for now, he has got them to back down.
Back to the scene of the fight where Esme, who's not quite dead, but she definitely kind of is not doing well. She can't verbalize or anything. When Emma shows up in her diamond form and says, you turned into such a wonderful little femme fatale in the end. I'm so proud of my girls, but I think I'm most especially proud of you, dear. And of course, Esme is like, I'm nothing like you. Like, it's what a weird,
the worst thing she could say.
Yeah, what a weird and wonderful thing that Emma Frost is, man. I just God damn, she's so great.
Yeah. It's so mean. Cyclops shows up and Emma hasn't seen her in forever, and she's pissed. It's like, listen, they shot me. He's been gone for quite a while. Jean fucked me up. And he's like, listen, no, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've made this decision between you and Jean. But they get interrupted because Magneto has now gone out onto the streets and is starting to try to do his thing. The day I've promised has come. He's going to try to take his shot at this point, but he's wearing the Zorn mask and nobody recognizes. Because again, Magneto was about an image. It wasn't about the things he was doing. It was about his legacy.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like, when do we get to see Magneto? Who the hell is this guy?
Which is just, just undercutting his grand, finale plan of just like, who the fuck are you is so, so good. It feels so great. And then even worse, like this human detective is like, you're under arrest by the NYPD.
Yeah. Again, just like a Beak-esque distraction. Mm-hmm. I keep thinking how much does it hurt? He'd be like, oh, your race will be extinct by morning. I can't help him notice the metal pin in your hip, and lifts him up. How bad would it hurt just to be lifted up by the pin in your hip?
I had metal in my body for a while. And I had 3 pins. I actually had a rod and 3 pins, but slowly took them out over time. And it's just the amount of pain I went through to recover from that and like walking on that leg and everything. I can't fucking imagine. Like the pins are doing work. Like the pin is there for a reason. Yeah. The pin is not there because you want like a piercing in your femur, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I can't imagine how bad this feels.
There was a great little Skype delay there when you said that you had 3 pins, and when you said rod, like Skype slowed down your voice for a second. So it was like, I had 3 pins and a rod. It's really good. Zorn is saying he's going to kill everybody here, but then Phoenix shows up in the ship here, and the officer's like, I softened him up for you, Henry. Beast jumps out of the ship with his syringes and injects 2 of them into Magneto's shoulders.
Yes.
Here, which presumably are sedatives of some kind. They're to neutralize the kick.
Yeah. And Beast is like, you of all people, Zord, and of course Magneto's like, I'm not Zorn, I'm Magneto, and and then like sends these needles going to directly back to Beast, who gets stabbed with them. And he calls for Logan as this happens, and then Logan shows up and does the same thing. It's like, do you remember me, Zorn? I'm the guy who threw you at the sun. And it's I mean, like, and then all of a sudden fucking Phoenix is there. Like, it's getting crazy, dude.
Yeah. And the theme here is him just keeps saying, I'm Magneto, and they're gaslighting him about it.
Yeah.
This is clearly intentional. This is a gambit to get him to take off the helmet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's very like coordinated. Like they're like, if we keep calling him Zorn, he's having this identity disorder. This will fuck him up. Jean shows up and he's like, no, he's right, Eric. Don't let us stand in the way of your big moment. You went to such lengths, at this time, you could have even been an actor. Jean Grey sees right through him because that's the Phoenix. He says, like, go on, make your pitch for world domination. And when it shows the crowd are all disillusioned.
Yes.
We don't want this guy in charge. We have no water. Who does this skull face think he is? This guy cannot take over the world. Magneto's like, how dare you? You don't recognize me for what I am. I'm Magneto. And Jean Grey does the final little push. Magneto, you don't even look like him. How can you be Magneto when he's dead?
There's
and he takes off the helmet.
And he does the I am Magneto. And there's something to this too, because like over the last 3 pages, he's done the I am Magneto thing, and it's done like that typical supervillain comic kind of art thing. And we see that 3 different times in 3 different ways that are probably references to old comics, if I had to guess. Like I would assume that they would do some weird shit like that. Like the Magneto with the purple period behind it, I think is just like reminiscent of something to me. But I like that he's like doing the comic book speech, and of course it's not working. Like Cyclops fucked that dude's face up so bad that nobody can recognize him.
Well, he's the only person operating on that level.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is part of Grant Morrison's whole, rejecting the past, the X-Men should be about the future thing. Like everyone around him is doing this kind of sophisticated, coordinated psychological psyop thing on him. And he just keeps going, I am Magneto, with the Magneto font, which is all it would take in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone else would just say their name and then they would fight. Like, again, he wants to play G.I. Joes. But that's not what the world is anymore. It's not what's happening. Like, this is Grant Morrison's, treatise that Magneto is old fashioned, even though they are showing him as a, he's influenced by this sublime shit, but his whole, like, I am Magneto, I am a villain thing doesn't fit that.
And this is spelled out by Charles Xavier when he shows up with the whole X-Men team, essentially. When Charles Xavier says, Magneto had become a legend in death and inspiration for change. Now look at you, just another foolish and self-important old man with outdated thoughts in his head. You have nothing this new generation of mutants wants except for your face on a t-shirt. Like, basically dismissing this dude's entire relevance, which is probably Grant Morrison's goal all along, right? Like, he just wanted to destroy Magneto and get rid of, like, all of this past stuff that the X-Men constantly cling to. And it's, Charles Xavier says your way will never work. It can't continue like this. You've all had enough.
Yep. The worst thing you ever did was come back. And this new generation, they have ideas of their own. Maybe it's time we stop giving speeches and start listening. Xavier had retired from the Institute at this point, like, had resigned as headmaster. Like, he is with the future as far as, like, it is not time for old white guys to be in charge of this anymore. And Magneto has a harder time giving that up. He collapses.
He collapses. Phoenix comes up and, like, puts her hand on him, and he grabs her and sends a lethal electromagnetic pulse, which is going to cause her to have a planetary scale stroke. He says, and then he puts the Zorn hat back on and says, "I will not be judged by children. Give me death. Make me immortal." Which is where we go to Logan, who does what he asks and fucking chops the dude's head off.
Yep. The helmet flies off. Plonk, plonk, plonk. Things happen really fast here. Cyclops is trying to save Jean. She is dying. She's only positive verbal. This has fucked something up. Like, and so you see this cuckoos, they're looking at Jean. They're like, something's gone wrong with the whole universe. But they're not looking at Jean. They're looking at Scott, because Scott is the fulcrum on which the future of the X-Men rests. This is Scott losing hope. Yes. Right? Like, this is the thing that causes the bad future. He says, somebody get help, somebody get Zorn, because he's so used to that. And again, this very touching, moment, Scott's crying. He's like, Jean, I'm really sorry about everything. I didn't mean to hurt you. And she's like, the Phoenix understands, I haven't seen you for a long time. You're my best friend. Live, Scott, because all I ever did was die on you. And then it fades out. And and now we're the future.
I love the way these panels fade out too. Like, it's almost like they're crumbling to dust. And, like, at the very bottom when he's yelling, Jean, Jean, like, it's fading into nothingness. Like, this is, and we saw on the previous page, like, in between the panels, like, this terror and presumably reality growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, whatever has happened has completely altered the foundations of the universe.
Mm-hmm. So we cut over to 150 years later.
Huh? Excuse me?
Yeah, it takes a minute. But we get to these people who we'll later find out are the free folk, or the free people or something.
The proud people.
The proud people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they've found something called the Phoenix Egg.
Yes.
And again, I understand people who read this issue and they're like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fucking dumb ending. I think it makes sense, but it takes a minute.
Yeah.
But as a thing for, like, Magneto, as a rejection of Magneto's character and contrasting idealistic Magneto with supervillain Magneto, I think this really works.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing the X-Men come together and do this kind of sophisticated plan to win in the end.
Yeah.
Feels good.
And yeah, what the fuck is a Phoenix Egg? And, what weird moon base is this Phoenix Egg on? And, like, why have people graffitied it in the background? Like, what the fuck is happening? And that's going to lead us into the final arc of the series.
Yeah. As we mentioned a couple episodes ago, after that, we'll be doing Age of Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
We are still looking for feedback on the series, Q&A stuff. Hit us up at DOFC Podcast on Twitter.
Yep.
Or at Gmail.
Or daysoffuturecast.com/contact.
Yes. Because we'll do an episode on those. We appreciate all the support. If you want to further support us, you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yes, all kinds of cool stuff over there that you can check out. Come join the Slack channel where we can talk about all things X-Men and the Days of Future Cast channel. Or, talk about Dark Souls in the Bonfireside Chat channel. That's a good place to be. Those
are the two channels.
I've been spamming it with Hollow Knight stuff, everybody. So like, you don't even have to worry about being on topic.
Exactly. Like just playing, and pretty soon we'll start talking about the Surge more as I get further into it. So it'll be only games that are several years old that show up there.
That Jeremy has played extensively. Those are the things that we're going to be talking about in that channel. So,
it's the Jeremy challenge.
Thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back with the first issue in the Here Comes Tomorrow arc in just a couple of days.